You ever just find yourself in a place like, what the fuck am I doing? That's where I am now. It's quite beautiful, actually. It's been a very nice climb, but I'm still like, what in the hell, Lindsay, are you doing? You know, because the reason why I'm here is I believe climate change is real. I believe that the trees aren't going to fare as well as other things, right? The bugs will do great because they have multiple generations in a year. They're okay with the heat. Trees won't. They have a 30-year generation cycle. And they don't tolerate drought very well. So I'm here because of climate change and because I want to preserve some semblance of the forest for the generations to come. That's why I'm here. But I live in this world where people, they don't give a shit about climate change. I live in a country where every 4 years it switches to whether or not we care about it and whether or not we're actively going to do something, to like being like, that's not real at all. You know, and then even if, you know, I meet people and they'll be like, yeah, the climate's changing, I accept that, there's facts for that, but it's changed before. And it's like, yeah, it's fucking changed before. There were periods of Earth's history where it was uninhabitable for humans, mammals. Literally, it was drought that caused the kingdoms of the Bronze Age to collapse. I watched a documentary on that the other day. Turns out, when there's not enough water to grow food, people start to freak out and pillage, and it brings the collapse of societies, you know. So anyways, it's discouraging that, like, I'm living in a world that, like, if I want to find money for research, you're not gonna get money for research if it involves climate change, period. That's the world we're living in. That's discouraging. You know, I got an email. It was basically like, climate activism is not okay. Don't bring it up in the work environment. You know, which sucks because I literally work in an environment where we are actively changing the landscape. You know, and it would behoove us to do that in a way that prepares for the future, for a warming future. And we can't even talk about it! You know, that fucking pisses me off. Canada is actively doing assisted migration stuff. They've got it together, so that's good. Now, if you don't know, when we talk about trees and climate change, we talk a lot about assisted migration. And assisted migration is the whole idea of, like, taking seed sources that are more adapted to a warm climate, and then moving it to a space where in the future that climate is expected to be there. Does that make sense? Like, you're taking the low elevation trees that are more adapted to warm and moving it up the hillside, because in 15, 20 years, it's going to be hotter up there. That's the whole idea of assisted migration. I think that we're just going to argue about it to the point where we're going to have to start doing species migration and start just planting whatever we can get to survive. I don't know. So anyways, assisted migration is all the rage. But the thing with assisted migration is that we do not have enough seed for it, period. We don't have enough seed for just what we're doing operationally. Okay, so that's where my orchard thing comes into play, is like, we're just going to need a crap load of seed. Whether we do assisted migration or not, we need it. So that's what I think about. That's what I do. Now, as I've mentioned before, we're out of seed. We've worked ourselves into a pickle where we don't have enough. We basically have like a 3-year buffer before it's completely gone. Whether or not we can get what we need in that period of time, I don't know. And I think people feel that. Definitely. I think people are realizing that I work with. And the new idea, the big brain scheme that we've come up with is to just chop down the seed sources. At the upper, lower, or, the mid to upper elevations, that doesn't bother me. But at the low elevations, it's egregious to me. Because again, that's the seed source that we're going to need to reforest basically everything. That's the idea. And it's tough because it's like you end the ability to harvest seed from the tree in perpetuity, right? Like you may get 10 bushels now, but you're not going to have 10 later, or, it stops it, okay? And then the worst possible thing out of all of it is that you end the ability to get vegetative material out of the top of the tree, scion. Because one thing that you can do with trees is you can take scion out of the top third of the tree, and then you can graft it onto little trees on the ground, and the little trees will think, oh, I'm still a 60-year-old tree, and will immediately start putting off seed. Not immediately, it takes a couple years. But it's infinitely quicker to put scion onto little trees to get them to make seed than it is to wait for seedlings to grow into mature trees, okay? From this one tree that I'm in, you could make, 15, 20, I don't even know, more seed-bearing trees, okay? I found out that that's what they're going to do like this last week, and I've really had a hard time. And I find myself, wanting to give up. So if you're a person out there who's ever felt like that, know that you're not alone. Here I am, dangling from this tree, very much wanting to give up. There are days that you feel like you want to give up. Eat a snack, take a nap, and you'll probably be okay. That's what I did yesterday, and I'm back up this bitch. And I've been thinking about the white pine blister rust program. Now, if you don't know what that is, it's essentially a federally funded program that has been aimed at restoring the white pine to the landscape and doing it through genetic tree improvement. It's been one of the most successful programs in the world, actually. And part of the reason why that is because it has a steady flow of income from our federal taxes. Some of that is good stuff, people. We don't gotta hate on everything, okay, that our taxes go to. Now, if you don't know the blister rust story, it's this. We had a non-native pathogen come here, and it just hit the white pine hard. And the forest that I'm in currently used to be just a massive white pine forest. It's not that anymore. And part of what we did in that scenario is we were like, all of it's got blister rust, let's just chop it all down. Come to find out that like the larger white pine can actually handle the rust fairly well, right? Because what the blister rust is it affects like the vascular tissue of the tree, sort of like eats away at it. So it predominantly affects the younger trees. It's easier, the only way you can kill the tree is if the vascular tissue all the way around the tree gets eaten away and it's girdled. It's way easier to girdle a 1-inch tree than it is a 30-inch tree. You see what I'm saying? So what we learned is that if we would have just left the big ones, they probably would have been fine. Okay? There is some level of parallel you could make between that story and the chopping of the low elevation seed sources to get seed story. Just saying. But anyways, I've been thinking about the Blister Rust program because it has been successful. It's like where we identified an issue and we took action. And because of the Blister Rust program, my children and their children will have the opportunity to still see big white pine in the forest. You know? So, that gives me hope. I ain't giving up on my mission. I think just from like this is where I'll get weirdly spiritual. From like a spiritual perspective, it's like, if I were to give up on all of this, there's like a piece of my soul, I think, that would hurt because of it. I love to swing from the trees. I believe it's a blessing to be able to be here and to learn, even if nothing goes the way that I want it to. Nothing works out. It's a blessing to be here and to be able to have a work. That's it. We're going to finish her up. We're going to bag her up. Don't give up if you feel like you want to give up. Thank you all for being here. Bagging them and tagging them, baby. Look at that. I know I'm on this don't quit thing, but I think one of the important things to note in situations where you want to quit is just go a little bit farther. Don't actually quit. Take one step and then take a break. Also, if you guys want to donate money to my cause, let me know. I'm realizing I'm going to need a lot of bags, and everything costs money, you know? Anyways, I realized that I forgot to take my own advice. So here I am reiterating for me, for you. It does not matter what you accomplish in life, like what you actually get done. If I make a seed orchard, good. If I don't, I don't. What actually matters is what happens to my soul in the process of questing towards that, right? What actually matters is engaging with activities that you feel like are true to your soul. I give a fuck about climate change, and I'm going to try my hardest. That matters. I love climbing up the trees and touching the cones and looking at them. They're cool. I love growing the trees. Working in the nursery was one of my favorite things of all time. I love planting the trees. I love all of those things. Right, so I am actively engaged with an activity that is good for my soul, and if I don't accomplish the mission fully, so be it. Right, what matters is what is occurring to me in that process. When I take one more step, when you take one more step, that is what you carry with you when you go. That's it. That's all I wanted to show. So take your step, take a rest.